Thank you for being on my show.
Avinash, it's great to be here. Thank you very much for the invite.
I'm not entirely sure about how I should be introducing you because you're into quite a few things and you're also in a bit of a transition zone. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you about that. But very quickly, you were a star of business in 2017 and you were a top 100 smart business leaders named by Arabian Business. And then I suppose the big one was you were named as the top 100 most influential people in Dubai.
Yes.
And that was alongside names like Mohammed Al-Abar of Emaar and Huda Katan of Huda Beauty and Tim Clark alongside of Emirates. So that's big. So thank you for, being
No worries, anytime. Now, those names that you were referring were closer to the number 1 slot. I was closer to the 100.
But you were in the list.
I was stoked, really, really stoked.
But of course, you are the CEO of Project Partners, which was named Best Commercial Fit-Out Consultancy.
Yep.
I suppose one of your projects was named as the Best Fit-Out Project.
Yep.
Very impressive stuff. Looking forward to hearing more about what you've been up to. But, a little bit about, your journey. You left school and started selling financial products for high street banks in the UK.
Yep.
And pretty much saved every penny so that you could buy your own real estate at the age of 19. And by the age of 26, you had a diversified portfolio of properties. In 2008, apparently you lost it all.
Yeah.
And because of the financial crisis.
Correct, yeah.
And then came to Dubai.
Yep.
Fast forward 10 years, you are an advisor and investor for numerous businesses. You've built and recently sold.
Yeah. No one knows that yet. It hasn't hit the papers, so you literally are.
So this is breaking news.
Breaking news. You heard it here first.
So you have sold your project management business,
correct?
Project Partners, which I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit more about. You're obviously embarking on some very exciting new initiatives, very ambitious ones, if I may say, as well. And I'd like to hear about that as well. So firstly, I'd just like to try and understand, what is it that drives you?
So where we are right now, I would say my main key drivers are trying to do right by as many people as I can. So I've been through, so between the age of 19 and 26, when I was, in financial sales, it was an incredibly well-paid job for the age I was. And I was very mindful that I didn't want to be employed forever. So I tried to make that work, the revenue work as much as I could. And, I worked the system. So I read a number of different books. And I tried to work the system to build this portfolio. And I had quite a considerable amount of capital or equity in those properties. And I was very pleased. As you can imagine, I was the only one out of my friends that, was driving and pushing hard and building, this mini empire, if you like. And I had no desire to stop either. And then the financial crisis hit. And the challenge that I was facing at that moment in time was the fixed rate for the mortgages had finished. And all of the mortgage payments went up. I had lost my job simultaneously. And so when you don't have an income and then your rental payments don't match your mortgage payments, you're in a bit of a tough bind. And unfortunately, I had to try and fire sale the properties. And I went from what should have been a significant amount of equity down to negative equity in all of them.
Now, if I was in your place and this happened to me, I might be thinking, well, I'm never taking any kind of risk again, and I'm just going to be safe. But you did pretty much the opposite, because you just flew over to Dubai and started a new entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah. So
did that kind of experience not scare the hell out of you?
So when you have nothing, and I mean that in the truest sense. So when I have a look at my last month of living the dream at 27, I think I was, I had a beautiful big 2-bed apartment, prime real estate in Cardiff city centre overlooking the city. I was driving the car of my dreams. It was my poster car for like the 10 years prior. To go from that and a decent, bank account, if you like, to go from that to literally nothing. Like my car got repossessed. I sent the keys back to the banks for the properties that I couldn't sell in time. And I was back living with my mum. You know, and the thing is that when you're at that age, like 27, when you're 27 years old feels old. But I'm 36, and when I look back at 27, I'm like, wow, you were so young at the time. That's a lot of pressure to put on yourself, you know?
What were you thinking at the time? What were you telling yourself?
So it was difficult to come to grips because in the space of, and I'm not kidding, 4 weeks, I lost my job, keys back to the bank, car repossessed. So like literally you go from thinking you're invincible, and I genuinely thought I did. When you have that much self-confidence and you are that good at what you do, you think it's going to last forever. But for as long as you're always employed, you're at the risk of not being in charge of your own destiny, you know? So it was tough, and you know, it took a while for me to emotionally and mentally understand what happened, and to be able to kind of, I suppose, commit to wanting to get better, if you like. Because, you know, with you know, that much change does come depression, you know, I started smoking and, you know, all that kind of random stuff. And I woke up one day and I was like, God, I feel awful. I want to change this. This isn't me, you know? And so I went to see a friend of mine who's a GP. And he said, look, if you can remember and you know how you were and how you want to become, go and do hypnotherapy. So I thought, do you know what? I've got nothing to lose. Let's go back to hypnotherapy. Booked for 8 sessions of hypnotherapy. And by the 4th, cured, absolutely cured. Like literally, I was skipping out of there. And I thought, this is amazing. I now need to take this motivation that I've got. The UK at the time was pretty much at a standstill. It was stale. And so I thought, where is there a thriving market that is underdeveloped and immature in a sense that I could take this motivation? I don't know what I was going to do.
So what was it about hypnotherapy that motivated you in this way?
So the lady explained to me that apparently when you have a series of bad events, chemicals in your brain, some stop, some start. Unfortunately, the good ones stop and the bad ones start. And your default response to almost every situation is to retract, is to you know, kind of like refrain from participating in anything that is social, positive, or anything like that. So you want to, you're automatically kind of like inclined to want to stay at home, not talk to people, not answer your phone, send an SMS instead, or BlackBerry Messenger as it was at the time. And so for as long as that becomes your kind of like your autopilot, it's very difficult to break that. So what hypnotherapy did for me was essentially you lie down on a bed and somebody talks at you. It's like guided meditation. So this person talks at you for 30, 45 minutes, and they can't, you know, kind of like calm you down and get you into a semi-conscious state. And they just tell you stories. They tell you stories as the first person. So you then, whether you're awake or whether you're sleeping, your body doesn't know what's real and what isn't real until you open your eyes and you're like, oh my God, I'm so glad or not glad that was a dream. And so what happens, these files of bad memories slowly start to get replaced with files of good memories. And so you can't even remember what the bloody story was.
So you were actually sleeping?
Like literally, you're sleeping and this person's talking at you. And yeah, she gave me a CD at the time as well to listen to before I was going to bed. And you know, a series of bad things have happened since then. And it's like water off a duck's back. It's, you know, I'm back to that kind of like invincibility. I'm back to extreme self-confidence. And I genuinely think that I can do anything as long as I prepare, study, you know, educate myself.
So in a nutshell, very quickly for the audience that doesn't exactly know what you're doing,
Yeah.
Or what you were doing at the time, but it's basically a case of finding, if I want, you know, if I'm setting up my business and I found an office space, and most of the time office spaces in Dubai are shell and core, which basically means there's nothing there. Yeah. Then what one would typically do is find a designer and a contractor to fit it out. Yeah. And one wouldn't think of hiring a project manager automatically. So where do you come in and what do you do?
So essentially what we were doing, we were the small person's project manager. We were it wasn't fully fledged, project management like what you would get from the big boys. It was very much a scaled down version. But by scaling it down, we made it simple. We didn't overcomplicate things. Like we didn't need the reams of reports in the early days of what the big boys do. It was, you're a human being, I'm a human being, you have a need, I think I can fulfill it. And you only need me for 10 hours a week, for example.
The market that you were trying to address was of small business owners who are very cost conscious, like you said.
Yeah.
How easy was it to actually make them understand the value proposition of a project manager? Because I'm sure many would be thinking that I'll just do it myself. I'll just find a good contractor who can execute. So presumably, was there an assumption from many or an objection from many that you're not really required?
Every person that I sat opposite in the early days that I can remember understood the role of a project manager, or project coordinator is what we were pitching ourselves as in the early days. But when they saw that there was a cost associated to it, they had trouble justifying, oh, well, hang on, if it's going to be 4 months at 10,000 dirhams, that's 40,000 dirhams. That's actually the cost of all of my chairs in the office. Actually, I'm going to risk it, So, and the problem is that don't forget, when you're fresh out of employment and essentially a newbie to the city, the first thing you ask anybody, in general conversation is, oh, how long have you been here? And you're like, oh, 11 months. Right, okay. Yeah, don't call me, I'll call you. Because they don't feel that maybe you have the necessary local experience to be able to deliver what you say that you're going to deliver. But how we got around that was essentially, a little bit of humanity, I suppose, is just saying, hey, listen, I'm a small business and I really want this work. I would love to have you as a reference and so on and so forth. I appreciate also in the same breath you're a small business. You tell me what you can afford, and as long as I believe that it covers at least my time, we can do this. But here's a list of everything that I'm going to do on your behalf so that you can focus on your business. And as soon as we kind of like readapted that approach, there weren't a lot of projects that we lost. There weren't a lot of projects we made money on either. However, what it did mean is that we got to build a portfolio and grow our network as well. So by the end of 2 years, we were still loss-making. I say loss-making if I was going to pay myself a fixed salary. I wasn't paying myself a fixed salary as and when we could afford, but we were still loss-making in the traditional sense. But we had delivered maybe 20 projects, which is substantial when you then go to talk to your next client, because you've done it in all districts. Oh yeah, similarly, I've delivered for this company, and this company in this free zone. And then all of a sudden, they don't question your experience and everything else. Just like, okay.
So what you did at the time was established credibility and then move over to focus on bigger projects and bigger clients?
There is a shocking statistic, and I believe that it's something like 80% of new businesses fail within the first 2 years or close. But the ones that succeeded and made it remembered us, and they would then get funding, or they would then grow. And so they then re-engage with us and say, hey, we're now moving to a $1 million project. Can you manage it for us? And the good thing is that obviously with their growth, we had grown as well. And they now had budget for project management, which meant that we were now able to achieve higher rates. Year three, 4, and 5, game changers.
I had a list of clients that you had won, which I can't find at the moment, but there were names like Maersk and Boeing and I mean big global brands.
Absolutely.
That did their project management through yourself.
Yeah.
How do you land projects like that? By doing these tiny startup projects?
Most of those are recommendations. So when a big organization, there seems to be somewhat of a trend, when a big organization comes in from overseas, or they relocate to a different free zone or a different tower, a lot of the time they will ask for recommendations, or they will see a beautiful office and they'll be like, oh wow, who did this? They never remember the contractor, they always remember us, because we continue to stay in touch with them every quarter. If it's whatever the local holidays are here, something always goes out to help them remind them that we exist. And Electrolux was a referral, Maersk was a referral, Visa was a referral. There's another company, one of the world's largest social media platforms. I can't tell you who it is, but you can guess who it is. That was a referral. And The Entertainer, which is the region's largest online group or buy one get one free platform, that was a referral as well. So by doing a good job first, we didn't always get it right. Cards on the table, we got a number of things wrong. Thankfully not horrendously wrong that it severely affected our reputation, but because we are human beings, we were willing to say, hey, sorry, we messed up, but this is what we're going to do to resolve it, and don't pay us anything else. We're willing to absorb that cost because we messed up. We've done it, thankfully not too many times, otherwise I would be broke, but we're not arrogant in that respect. We are very humble, and we're very aware that it's important that you take responsibility for when things do go right, give yourself a pat on the back. But when things don't go right, having the ability to put your hand up and have that really horrible, I hate confrontation. Like, I still do. Like, there are certain things that through NLP, I'm able to condition my brain to prepare for confrontational moments. But I don't like those conversations. Cool. I would love for the ground to open and swallow me, because I just hate confrontation. I hate thinking that an action I took has negatively impacted another human being, which has happened in a couple of instances, but you have to have those conversations. And that is how you grow. That's how you grow as a leader, as a business owner, as a human being.
And so you've obviously, over the past decade, 2009 to we're in 2019 now, you've obviously grown the business. It's been successful. You've won numerous awards in your personal capacity as an entrepreneur, but also as a business. You've decided to change things up a little bit now. So
just a smidge.
What's the thought process behind that, and what have you been up to?
Okay, so I mentioned earlier I love a challenge, and I'm very, very fortunate that project partners in the project management sphere, we were inundated with work at the start of the year. And so we were subcontracting work out to another project management company, bigger than us, older than us, more experienced than us. But we got on like a house on fire. I didn't realize, but he was my neighbor in the first villa like 6 years ago. And then I bumped into him. And he was like, oh my God, you're the...
But how does that work? So you're effectively project managing the project manager?
Kind of. So essentially, we buy time. So if you're the other project management company, I say, I need I need a resource for 20 hours a week. He then gives me a discount on the rate card. And then I'm able to essentially package his project manager as my own and put him into...
project partners are still accountable, and,
Oh,
they're the ones that
absolutely
deliver the goods for the
That's
client.
why it's important that we interview that project manager. And we understand that has that project manager got relevant experience? Have they delivered, projects of a similar size, nature in this free zone? But more importantly, is their attitude right as well? Because we operate operated, still do, I suppose, very much a solution-driven business. Like, it's important to document everything, but if you can take action on something now that rectifies the problem, you can do the paperwork later, rather than getting bogged down.
So you were at the beginning of the year getting too many clients, which is a good problem to have. You were subcontracting.
Yeah.
And then you decide to...
So throughout the evolution of project partners, you begin to learn who the good contractors are. And so a lot of companies in 2017 and 18, their budgets were becoming tight. And they genuinely didn't have budget for project management. I'd always help them out anyway at the front end, to the point, for as long as I had free time, I'd be more than happy to give them free advice. But they were making really bad decisions when it came to appointing contractors. They had no idea what due diligence was, and how to carry it out for a contractor. And even when they did, and they got the feedback, is like, well, is that good? I don't even know. So what we decided to do was trial something. And this is why the leads went off the chart. At the start of the year, I invested a little bit of money in building what is essentially a platform for what I would consider qualified contractors. So we invited 40, 50 contractors from in and around the region to participate in a due diligence exercise. And if they made the grade, we'd give them the opportunity to be listed on this platform, as long as they agree to certain SLAs and everything else. And I mean, that was very laborious, very time consuming and expensive, because it's my resource that has to go out and conduct all of the due diligence. What happened is we then had this portfolio, if you like, of contractors that have successfully delivered and continue to deliver wonderful projects on all of the key metrics that I believe are important for a project. And so I hijacked the project partner's website and I put this portal up there, only for a couple of months, just to see how the region would react. And we fine-tuned the market message just to, again, direct traffic towards it and see what the consensus was.
So you go through this experience over 2 months.
Yeah.
And decide that I'm just going to change my line of business completely, in a sense.
At that point, no. I knew that I was sat on something that had significant potential, but my baby has always been project partners. And so by the time June came, the project partners, kind of like message went back to project management and all the rest of it. And I thought, I'm sat on something significant and I don't know how to take this to market, how to make this amazing. Now, park that for a second. Owner of the other project management company then sits down with me before I go away for my summer vacation and says, hey, really appreciate this relationship, but we have more work than what we can deal with. I'm having to hire new people to deal with your leads. And I was like, brilliant. And he said, no, not brilliant, because it's now my overhead and my risk. Is there a way that we can, kind of solidify this partnership or relationship so that at least if I'm invested in new personnel, I know that you're not going to cut the cord for another PM firm that comes in and gives you a higher offer or whatever it is. So I said, look, if it's not broke, I don't want to fix it. Draw up a contract or something. I'll sign it, 12 months renewable, whatever. And he said, well, actually, if you're planning to do something with the portal and that's going to be packaged as something different, how about if project management, if project partners reverts back to the traditional project management, why don't we look at an acquisition? Because if my company acquires project partners, then we are essentially one and the same. And so we will end up dealing with all of the project partners leads anyway. And at that time, Universe works in wonderful ways. And it was a conversation that caught me off guard. And I would be dreadful at poker because I do not have a good poker face. Because I could feel myself smiling, and it was like the stars had aligned or whatever it was, and it was like, this is it. This is it. I'm supposed to. The acquisition was always supposed to take place now.
Because I know that you were speaking to other companies, well-known tech companies here, venture capitalists.
Yeah.
And they were all encouraging you to focus on this and to build this.
The response was amazing. To echo your comment earlier, I am not a tech person. I've got a fantastic entrepreneurial brain, and I understand how things work. I understand the emotional aspect of buying. I understand the emotional aspect of selling and leadership as well. But I don't know enough about tech, which is why I reached out to the VC firms and said, hey, I think I'm sat in a unicorn. What can you tell me about it? And basically they gave me a list this long of all the things that I need to do to package this so that it can become a legitimate business. So the acquisition happening, so project partners being absorbed by the other company, basically it's pointless having two CEOs. So part of the deal was I get to exit. Now there's a handover period. I'm going to continue to be at project partners full-time, part-time, whatever, so that there is a smooth handover, transition and integration period. But from January onwards, I'm basically not a free agent. I've now completely filled my time with something magnificent.
But it seems like this happened overnight. I mean,
it felt
you're
like
talking to them in June.
Yeah.
And here we are, mid-September, where you're saying that you've exit and now you're going to be doing your portal full-time.
Yeah. It felt like it happened overnight.
Didn't it take a while to arrive at the right valuations and to kind of negotiate? And wasn't there a concern on their part that, well, David is project partners and will we be able to win the same number of clients if David's not around anymore?
Great question. So from a valuation standpoint, their business is exactly the same as ours from a project management perspective. So the valuation that was put on theirs, the algorithms and the mechanics were exactly the same as this. So it was very easy to understand, kind of what the value was, and, will become, if that makes sense. And I was happy with it. Because typically service-based organizations, unless you have an exclusive contract that is, open-ended, that guarantees you millions of dirhams every single year, which we don't have, then it's typically, relatively low multiples of profit. And I was very happy with the valuation that came in. And I know that they were as well. Now, to go back to your comment about is Project Partners David, I think traditional Project Partners was very much me. I was the front man. And I was the person that closed the vast majority of sales and opened the vast majority of doors. But the reason why this works so wonderfully is because how this topic even came about of the acquisition was because of the success of those 2 months of the portal that we hijacked the Project Partners site. No one gave a damn about David. It was the problem that this portal solved. So they were going to the portal with the intention of selecting a number of qualified contractors and essentially then inviting them to bid. Now the good thing is, the bigger they are, the more likelihood is that they would need and want a project manager. That's what we were sending over to the other company. And then by further developing the portal and having that relationship with the project management organization as well, as long as the portal continues to perform, the project management firm will always get business. And that's it. And people don't even know that I'm behind it. They won't even know that I'm behind it until it, kind of like goes to the papers and everything else.
So how has your startup journey been? I know you've gone through a couple of iterations in terms of brand name. Originally, it was Contractors.ae.
Yeah.
Have you decided now on, and would you like to announce what you're going to be calling it?
Yes. So the new contractor portal, we kept it simple, stupid. We consulted a branding agency, and they said it needs to be exactly what you say you do. So it's Contractors.direct. So anybody that goes to that website has the opportunity to connect with qualified contractors direct, no intervention, free, by the way. So and this is now what I want to do, is keep it free, not just keep it free, pack it with value. What else can I do? What else can I give the consumers, the customers, that not just solve the contractor problem, but what other challenges are there that come through?
So effectively, you're going to be a marketplace portal.
Yeah.
And when contractors win business, they pay you.
Yeah, correct. So we're still figuring out what the business model is going to be, because we need to figure out what that happy medium is. So is it a subscription charge? Is it a cost per lead? We're still kind of like fine-tuning that out. It might be a combination of all. But the primary goal and focus is to make sure that whatever our fee or cost is doesn't end up going on to the cost to the clients. Because ultimately, if you put yourself in a contractor's position, not that I am in favor of anybody losing jobs, but essentially, if we are their main source of qualified leads, they need less salespeople, which means less visas, less holiday pay, less gratuity. Their overhead, their operational overhead should be dramatically reduced now, because we are doing all of the biz dev work for them. We're doing all of the qualification work for them. All they need to say is, yes, I want to pursue this lead, or no, I'm not interested.
And similarly for the client, what they get is a contractor that has their due diligence done and recommended by your portal.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
And with public reviews, I'm guessing.
Yes. So part of the due diligence is we contact 5 of the contractor's last clients, and they must be delivered within the last 12 months in order for us to get a true picture of how are they delivering now. And all that information is put on the portal for people to see. photos, you've got the overall score as well, and also the comments from the clients also.
So if I had to ask you about what valuation you'd like to aim for in 2020, what would you say?
So this is now where it gets interesting.
I know, because we spoke about it off camera, and I want you to say it.
So I genuinely think I've got a lot to give. Contractors.direct aside, and those clients aside, I think I've got a lot to give to or value to fellow entrepreneurs, small business owners, and people that feel that they've hit the ceiling with their business. What I want to do and what I'm going to do is commit to, because this is a new business, essentially we're starting from scratch. I'm going to document, like proper documentary style, the entire journey. So all of the good things, all of the bad things, and I will explain, using workshops, whiteboards, everything along those lines, everything I'm doing and why. And the why is important, because you can tell somebody what to do, but if they don't really understand why they're doing it, it becomes a lot difficult for them to commit and to continue to do it, especially if what you're telling them to do is difficult or time consuming, if that makes sense. So there will be things that we succeed tremendously at. There will be things that we don't succeed at. There will be things that, from a marketing perspective, no doubt we'll spend money on something that tanks. And that's okay. It's all part of the learning, and it will all be documented. So what I would like to do
in a documentary video format.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe Netflix will pick it up. I'd be over the moon if they did. Not sure it'll be that interesting for them. It depends, actually. But by documenting the entire journey and communicating, like literally no filter, you will see, I'm sure, a lot of smiles, a lot of happiness, a lot of success. You're probably going to see tears. No doubt, there will be times where I will struggle to make payroll. The idea is to not call on money from external. So whatever we made through project partners, whatever we've got in savings.
So at this point, you're funding it yourself?
Correct. Yeah. And I'm funding it not from savings, like literally, I'm getting a salary now from project partners. That's what's funding this. So but when my salary stops, this either needs to be self-sustainable, or I need to be incredibly creative about managing overheads and costs.
So given that this is a tech proposition, when is a good time for you, do you think, to reach out to venture capitalists and have a serious conversation with them?
I'm setting up an advisory panel, and the advisory panel, I would love to have one of the tech VCs have a seat at. There's a number of people that I've earmarked that I think could add significant value to the success of what this portal is going to become. As far as reaching out to them for capital, I am going to try not to be honest. How the business model, how the market responded to the business model first time round was tremendous. So all I need to do is make sure that I capture more of the market, and I stay at the moment, we will be the only contractor portal on the market with qualified contractors. If we keep focusing on value, keep focusing on the client experience, and we grow exponentially, as long as we can lock out some solid partnerships to guarantee our leads, and we constantly evolve and improve the platform, so from a user experience standpoint it becomes easier, more efficient. I would say that the VC firms I would like to be contacting me. That's how I want to do this. We've got some extremely elaborate marketing ploys, which involve a piano, email mall, and thousands of people. Because we want to do things differently as well. We don't want to be the run-of-the-mill where you just disappear into the background from an advertising and marketing standpoint. We want to be seen, we want to be heard, and I genuinely think this is going to be massive.
Well, David, it seems that we have spoken at Crossroads, so I'm glad we shot this episode today, and I'm looking forward to seeing the documentary for sure, and happy to help with Contractors.direct in any way that I can.
Fantastic.
And, thank you for being here today.
Absolute pleasure to be here and talk about it. Nice to see you.
And I've got to say, I've also got to thank you for being transparent, honest, and completely open with everything that you've gone through. And I'm sure that it is going to be very inspiring for our viewers as well.
I hope so. That's what I'm planning anyway. Thank you.
Thank you.